Hello, product people. Welcome to the Product for Product podcast, hosted by Matt Green, data advocate and product manager, and Moshe Mikanovsky, product leader and author. Our goal is to serve the product community by helping you find products that can help make your work in product management easier. Thanks for joining us on another episode of the Product for Product podcast.
Welcome back. In today's episode, Moshe and I are excited to continue our startup series with Sumeet Rana. Sumeet is the founder and CEO of Prodhub.ai. So let's dive in. Welcome to the show, Sumeet.
Thank you, Matt. Very nice to be here.
Pleasure to have you. Hello, Moshe.
Hey, Matt. Hey, Sumeet. Nice seeing you again. We met in person at Collision in Toronto. So that was a really great opportunity for me to look around and see which startups are on our domain of product people. That's always exciting.
Very exciting.
So thank you for coming to the show.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Tell us about yourself first.
Yeah, so I have about 20 years of product experience. I was a product leader at Disney, Parks and Resorts specifically. I was leading the e-commerce checkout experiences over there, omni-channel strategy and digital product optimization, which effectively meant managing all the ticket sale, package sale, resort sales. And then I moved to Expedia, where I was leading the conversational intelligence and experiences program. A very nice experience on both Disney and Expedia.
I can imagine.
And having led large product teams for such a long period, I kind of got to understand the challenges that exist within product management and the inefficiencies that we have. So by looking at that, decided to work on something, looked outside, are there any products that are trying to solve the problem the way we were looking at the problems? I didn't see any products, and there are a ton of product management tools out there, no surprise. But the way we are approaching is slightly different. And then took about 9 months last year to do as much research as possible. Got enough thumbs up, enough validation that we decided to build something exciting. And here we are. We have a beta product that is ready. We have beta customers who are using the product, and we are pushing hard to make them happy.
So I'm really curious about that journey over there. So tell us first quickly what Product Hub is doing, and then I do want to go back a bit to that journey of the discovery and how did what were the steps that you took over there? Who did you speak with and stuff like that? Because that always fascinates me.
Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely. To go back to our core hypotheses, and I'll start with the story, a fun story on how this whole thing kind of evolved. I was leading I was leading the checkout experiences for Parks and Resorts. And one of the small line items, which was like $1 million in spend a year, was modernized checkout, which is very natural for a large company. You spend 5 years on a page, especially the most significant page, which is the revenue page. And over the years, what happens is you add more functionality, more capabilities, more complexity, and the page does not perform, right? So you want to figure out what the challenges are and you want to modernize it. So it was a very small scope, and the idea was, let's go fix it. I go to my team and I say, hey, guys, let's talk about checkout. What do we have to do? And the answer I got back was, Sumeet, which checkout? And I was totally taken aback. I'm like, what do you mean with checkout? Well, we have 12. I'm like, what?
12?
12 checkouts. Well, okay, there's one for mobile app, there's one for mobile web, there's one for this, there's one for that, and all on different tech stacks, right? And there was a valid reason behind it. Well, we had to launch this by this date, so we went with this technology, it was an amazing launch, right? Awesome. But here we are, 5 years later, we have 12 different checkouts. And then I kind of, as we looked at what those different experiences are, we found out that the least common denominator is huge, right? The commonality between different checkouts is huge. And just imagine how much time, energy has been spent in building that experience.
Yes.
And if you were to take that example and look at any application out there, and you actually wonder about that hang on a second, all the applications that are being built, all the features that are being built across the globe, what is the least common denominator in each of those, right? I will take another fun one. For example, chat application, right? If you were to look at say top 100 chat applications out there, and you were to give an exercise to a product intern and say, find the commonality between all those 100 chat applications, I can place a bet that at least 75% of the features are common, at least.
My number in my head was higher than that.
Absolutely. I totally agree. Right? At the end of the day, what is a chat application, right? One-to-one messaging, one-to-many messaging. You call it a group, upload photos, videos, and voila, you have a chat application.
Yeah.
And of course, simplifying it, but the idea, the concept remains largely the same. So knowing that, I was like, okay, there is a need to solve this because it's highly, highly inefficient the way we are doing it. We're spending so much time, energy, effort. And imagine the conversational time that goes into it. Like now, how many arguments happen because of implement this way, that way, and so on and so forth, right? So I started on a mission to solve that within Disney. We had 12 checkouts and we had plans to add 6 more because of, we were adding all sorts of payment methods and stuff like that. So I started on a mission took me about 7 months of convincing every single GM, every single VP of product in the company to sign off on a single unified checkout. And we did not have a budget for it, but I ultimately did what creative PMs do, beg, borrow, and steal. And I just went kind of going after every budget that was available. And we actually ended up building the universal checkout, one checkout in that particular space. And that kind of got me thinking, okay, the problem is much, much bigger, right?
Yes.
So when I looked outside, I said, are there any tools out there that do this? Imagine if you're a product manager and say, I want to build a solution for X, right? Well, where do you start? Well, I start from scratch. Well, are there any tools that are available? Of course, there are tools available, but they actually compound the problem. They allow you to create user stories. They allow you to create more and more content when this has already been created by somebody smart.
Yes.
Then I kind of looked out. I said, well, there is a perfect example of this that has done this successfully, and that is the GitHub. GitHub did this for engineers. GitHub said, hey, don't waste time writing common code. This code has written by somebody smart, and that's where the invention of code libraries came in, is somebody smart has already solved this problem. Don't waste time solving it. Go focus on the new. Go focus on this, right? So there was nothing like that for product people. And so that's kind of where I started. Okay, if I am a payments product manager and I want to not start from scratch, but find something that's already out there. I want to find what is the best way to implement payments. What are the best case scenarios? What are the edge case scenarios? What are the null scenarios, right? Where do I go? Today, you can go to Prodhub and find those user stories around payments, around e-commerce, around banking, and we're adding new verticals every week where we're adding more and more use cases. And then just to transition into the journey, like we are still continuing to add content, but at the same time, with generative AI, it just had made it easier to create more content. So we initially were restricted by the amount of content we can create. Now we are not. Like any use case, any industry, you can come and you can actually generate use cases and user stories in real time right on the spot. So that's what we pivoted to, and that's what we have right now in our product.
Very nice, very nice. I can tell you that I really resonate with that story. Not so much from one place that had all of those different pages that are doing the same thing, but more from every place that I was a product manager and every new product that we developed, we had to start from the beginning of, okay, so the user have to log in. And then we have to create a login page and get in the forgot password and all of those stuff that millions of other developers and product managers already developed in the past. So, and we wasted so much time on the design of that and thinking about, do we need 2 passwords, 2 fields to confirm the password, or 1 field to confirm the password? Do we need to confirm the email address? We don't need to confirm the email address. Is it going to be here? Or is it going to be there? And it was so much wasted time and efforts.
Absolutely.
And my whole thing was that when I am leading a product team, I want them to focus on strategy. I want them to focus on solving bigger problems. I don't want them to go, and I think that's true to any automation solution out there. Automation solution helps you save time by focusing on mundane, repeatable tasks, right? That's exactly what we are doing. I want my PMs to focus their time on solving customer problems so that we can drive revenue. That's where the value is, right? Not on wasting time on same stuff over and over again, right? So that's kind of what we are pushing for.
Yeah, and that's great. I also always told my teams, let's just deal with the stuff that we are here to differentiate from others, and not reinvent the wheel all the time. Because
Absolutely.
I felt that we were reinventing the wheel again and again and again for so many, weeks and months. We talked recently with Alex Wilson about. Did I get the right last name? Is it Wilson?
Yes,
Matt?
design. Yep, design
Yeah.
systems. Yep.
Yeah. So we talked recently with Alex Wilson about design systems, and design systems are doing something similar to that for the designers. And there is still a lot of kind of chaos with how to build design systems and what the right way to do that. And not a lot of people are doing it successfully. So we're excited to hear that he was able to do it in his company. So, and then you mentioned GitHub, that is the code for the developers to bring from, other people's experiences. So that's like what you identify is that missing part for product people.
Yeah, so we like to use that we are GitHub for product. Like we like to use that in our pitches. Like we are a GitHub for product. That is like, why should engineers have all the fun? Like we could make it available for product managers too, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Perfect. So where are you now with your journey? I mean, you started last year, you mentioned you did a lot of discovery and you talked with people. And where are you these days?
Yeah, so we started building it in December. We launched our first version in April. And then after that, we've continued to iterate and continued to improve the product. So obviously by now the product is quite mature. And we have added a lot of new capabilities, especially the one I was talking earlier. Our biggest pivot is that initially we started with the product library. Today, our dominant experience is automation through generative AI. So you could come to our platform, give us a one-liner on your product vision, which could be something like, I want to build a healthcare app that manages stress. That's all we need. And based on that, we will generate a PRD that is up to 50% complete. You can go in, edit it, enhance it, customize it. One click of a button, you can go and create user stories, use cases, and acceptance criteria on it. All of this step will go within like 2 to 3 minutes. You'll have like from that one-liner, you'll have your PRD, you'll have your user stories, and you can integrate with Jira and push of a button goes to Jira right away. So that I think has been a significant product development on our side. It is live right now. We also just launched our individual plan. I think that was also kind of like different insight that got us there, was that as we're reaching out the enterprises, we're reaching out to the chief product officers, we're reaching out to the SVPs of product who are the decision makers. But then we are like, and as you all are aware, enterprise cycles are long, right? It takes a time to convince and get through the reviews and all that stuff for them to sign on. So we have beta customers who are using the product today, but the cycle is long, right? So we kind of realize that we are going after the decision maker, but then we are not doing something for the end user, that is the product manager or the product owner. So we just launched an individual plan so that we are not held back by the long cycles of enterprise closing. And with that individual plan, it does not have collaboration features because it's an individual plan. It's meant for the ICP. For just $19 a month, any product manager or product owner can start using Prodhub.ai and can reap the benefits. As they mature, as they feel like, oh, I have enough content, I need to collaborate, I need to move on to the organization model, we can, of course, upgrade them to that. But that's kind of has been a significant shift. In terms of our journey, like overall from a stage of the business, we have considered raising, but then I think it's hard to do both at the same time, building the product and raising at the same time. And I think we still are trying to make sure that the beta customers that we have, they bang the table and say, yes, like we're getting tremendous value out of this product. So we are kind of being laser focused on that right now. So we're still bootstrapped. We got a commitment early on, but we're still pushing on getting the product market fit, and hopefully we'll get that soon. And then looking at funding and all these other aspects. But nothing is more important than getting customers and getting customers to pay for a value that they see in our product. That has been kind of like our journey and where we are today.
Very nice. So the customer uses your library of information. Are there ways to integrate contextual information from their side as well to add in like, hey, I'm asking, I want to build a healthcare app, but I want to pump in additional information from the outside?
Well, so first of all, so that's a very good question, Matt. Thank you. And I'm glad you asked that. So the way we have built is that we had two choices. One is that we ask you 20 questions and learn everything about you.
Okay.
But that goes against every design principle. Like, don't do that when you're getting people onboarded, right? So what we now do is we created a very lightweight onboarding, which actually asks you about what's your role, what is your industry. And then, of course, you sign up as an organization, so we know a little bit about organization. That is the starting stage for our context building. We start learning a little bit about you, about what is the some specificity about you. Then our next step is you add a product. When you add a product in that, and especially when you create a PRD based on the product vision, and you go in and enhance your PRD, you make changes to it, customize it, right? Again, that is additional context to us, right? Your product vision is context, your PRD is a context. And then when you add a user story, you'll give me some blurb about the user story. I want to build a user story to do blah, right? That is additional context. So what happens is as you experience the product, you go into the steps, we are building the context. We are adding more and more granularity. The output of the previous step becomes the input of the next step. So we are not front loading all the 20 questions to you. We are step by step getting more and more accurate based on the signals you are providing us.
Learning from the user.
Right. So we are learning as part of that, right? Secondly, we also just launched the recommendations on the platform, which is suitable for a junior PM or a product owner that, let's say, they wrote a user story and it's not up to the mark. Like, let's say the format is not correct or the length is not correct. Currently, we have rules-based recommendations. We have just started slow rolling the recommendations, but we'll make it smarter, which will actually guide and coach you. We will learn what you've done and we'll say, hey, it's missing something. I don't see any null scenarios. Like, where are the null scenarios, right? Things like that. Like, that will add value to you as a product manager. And some of the feedback that I'm getting is that, oh, this could be a very good training tool for our PMs, right? Like, first of all, you have one place to go for all your product requirements. And second of all, when a new person joins in and they say, okay, what am I working on? Well, first get yourself familiar with the product. There's the product, right? And as they write, our recommendation engine is going to coach them, help them get better and better, right? So that's kind of like how we are learning the context and how we are adding more value. We are also working on something called import backlog, which again is like it's natural that we get this feedback too that, hey, I'm already using system X. And all my backlog is there. Now, if I start using Prodhub.ai, I'm going to start using a different system altogether. I want to have one source. Totally valid. So we are working on an import backlog, but we are not going to make it like super easy. And let me explain why I say that. For example, the number one request that we get is that, okay, put the easy button on Jira that push the stories out from Prodhub to Jira, right?
Yeah.
Why can't you do the same? Why can't I bring all my stories from Jira? And we are very, 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 very cautious in that. We say, look, we'll give you a CSV, upload a CSV, because we want you to be deliberate about it. Imagine if we open the floodgates and say import everything from Jira, right? Guess what happens, right? I call it the garbage in, garbage out problem, right? Like if you flood every bug, every issue, every task, everything will come in and it becomes exactly what it is right now, which is a hot mess of everything, right?
Right.
Make sure that you have the cleanest version of your product. And that is possible when you start structuring your products, your epics, your user stories in a nice format, the use cases which we give. And we want to make sure that you're making a conscious decision on what to import. So which is why a CSV import is probably the cleanest way to import it. The Jira one, we are not very excited about importing your Jira backlog. You can, of course, export to Jira. So we are totally open to that. Again, it's a philosophical thing. I think if our customers say that, no, we know how to handle our business, we'll take care of it and we'll do it, we will absolutely consider it. But as of right now, that's where we are.
Right. Yeah, you're making a deliberate effort to get better at producing better stories, better PRDs. Yeah, that's a great point. I appreciate you bringing in stuff where it's not going to be helpful. You're going to get right back in the loop.
Yeah, and I think this is one of those examples where all friction is not bad. You want to add a little bit friction because you want to make sure that there is some deliberate effort on the part of the user. And they consciously, I'll give you another example that I got a very good feedback from one of our beta customers. They were very happy with our generative AI capabilities. And it was when they executed the whole user story use case acceptance, like, oh my God, this is amazing. But you know what my worry is? My worry is that now the product manager is not going to put in the effort. He just got button, he's going to say, yep, done, my job is done, right? And they want to make sure that you have actually reviewed what has been generated and you have personally signed off on it and said, yes, I have reviewed it, I've looked at all the details, it's comprehensive, and I'm happy with it, right? And that was like, oh, okay, oh my God, like we didn't think about it, right? So they want to add some friction, even though it's automated, they want to add some friction to make it a deliberate attempt at accuracy and completeness, right? And again, in this case, like accuracy is super important, right? And we all know that, and so we're not claiming that a product manager come in and suddenly magically all his work will be done, right? Like we are a co-pilot. Our goal is to make you 50% more productive, right? Get rid of all the mundane tasks and all that stuff. But we want to make sure that you are able to add more specific contextual information and get more accurate in the tasks that you're trying to do, right? So that needs an input, that needs an effort, so therefore, hence the co-pilot. And hence I say all friction is not bad.
Yeah, I'm glad that you mentioned that, because that's really one of the things I had in my mind. I've already voiced my opinion about generative AI to some of my friends. Matt, you might know about it. Some other people know about it even more. I, in general, don't like generative AI. And the reason is because I feel that people take it and become lazy in what they are able to do. And that's what I'm afraid, that people will just say, oh yeah, it just created all of these stories for me, let's just implement it.
Yeah.
Especially if let me let you answer that, and then I have another question on top of that.
I was just giving an example. Like I was just creating a post on a job on LinkedIn. And LinkedIn is a great platform for hiring. And if you notice that they added generative AI capabilities for job description. So all I gave was like a partial title. That's all I said. Like I'm looking to hire X. And they said, okay, put the easy button. I put the easy button, and voila, like 80% of the job description is ready. And job description is probably the most, again, common repeatable pattern, right? If that's the job, it won't vary too much, right? And I was like, holy shit, like you just saved me 20 minutes. I would have spent 20 minutes writing a job description. But they have a small line on top. It is your responsibility to review the job before posting, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think, and I don't know how else it can be done better, but they are putting it right there front and center, that don't just mindlessly push the button because my job is done. You have to put in some effort to make sure you get what you want, right? So I think this is a perfect example of where I get the job done faster, but at the same time, I am putting my original thought into it, and I'm putting like getting my life easier, right? So that's those are exactly the way we are thinking from our product perspective too.
Right. No, that's fair enough. The next question that I have is, we know that, even with those standard things like login or checkout pages, over time things have improved, and things have there is innovation there as well. And we have to be mindful about that maybe there is going to be something new coming up as a new technology that will allow us to do it in better way, or that will enable us to reduce time or friction to the users when they log in, when they check out, and all of that stuff. So if we are getting into a stage that all the new products are going to use generative AI to create from what was done in the past, how do we still make sure that there might be new innovation there that will be taken into account?
Yeah, I think you're asking a similar question, which is the original thought, right? Like because I think one of the biggest criticisms that we hear about generative AI is innovation. You don't want to curb innovation. You don't want to curb original ideas, right?
Right.
And we are actually literally working on a feature where once you have created your first version of it, we will actually give you a button that say dig more, or kind of like, give me ideas, give me some more ideas around that, right? So I think it is very, very important. And again, and I've said this in a couple of other public forums as well when I've been asked to speak, is that we need to look at generative AI as sort of like, an amazing technology that makes your life easier, but to propel your productivity. But you don't want to rely too much on it to the extent that you stop innovating, right? It should free up your time to get fresh ideas. It should free up your time to explore more ideas, right? And there is the two diagonal principle actually tells you that, right? Like if you talk about from a PRD creation perspective, like you need to diverge and then converge, right? So I think to me, I kind of feel like, and we will inculcate those ideation principles and say, hey, like go crazy, think about 20 ideas that you may consider, and then start voting on them or start narrowing down on those type of things, right? So I kind of feel that responsible teams will look at this balance. Responsible team will say, okay, I don't want to spend too much time on the mundane stuff. Like I want an easy button there. But then whatever time I have, I want to focus on innovating. I want to focus on creativity, right? And I got that from one of the CEOs of a pretty big company. And this was very early days. Like we didn't even we had a prototype, and I was speaking to her about what we are building. And I was very surprised to hear from her. She said, I think you're onto something. I think this will definitely save time. I said, great, awesome. So like, let's set up a demo. No, but that's not my worry. And I'm like, what? What do you mean that's not your worry? You just said you agreed with that. She said, no, I agreed it will save time, but my worry is not saving time for my PMs. My worry is that will they be innovative enough? I want them to think big ideas. I want them to, not like saving 50% of the time. Like, what does that give me? Right?
That's a great insight.
Yep.
And I'm like, oh my God, that's insane. Like, that's where I think they planted the seed in our head that we need to focus on, like, when you're thinking about what problem to solve, that's where the big opportunity is, right?
Yeah.
You need to provide an assistive role there and help people think bigger ideas, right? Help them kind of collate those ideas, help them write better PRDs. That's where it came from. But I really appreciated that insight, right?
And that's exactly where my thoughts are. That I agree that generative AI can help and save time to people. And when we had an episode, we talked about with Magali, we talked about AI in general and generative AI tools in general. And I think the conclusion there was that it's not going to replace us as product managers. It's just going to help us become better product managers. And therefore, we should try to use them. But I'm still more of the later adopter, where I'm trying to keep my brain working.
Yeah, where I'm all in. I'm like all in on it. So yeah.
We're representing both sides.
Yeah, we are.
It's really good. I like that. But no, I'm glad that that's what you found in your research, because it does seem like that is taking you in the right direction, that it's not really replacing the product manager. And hopefully you're putting all of these warnings and bells in the product to say to the product managers, you are responsible for this decision making. It's not the AI. We're just helping you, get better ideas, better, saving time on stuff like that. What do you think about, in the same token, I also have another thought about, the art, or the, not so much art, but the ability for product managers to write good stories. And that's something that for many people, it's not natural. It's something that they have to practice in order to be able to do it right. So isn't there also a risk that someone that never wrote any stories will start using generative AI to get those stories, and he's like, doesn't he have the real understanding of why a story is written in a certain way?
Yeah, so I think that's where our recommendations part comes in. And we are really trying hard to make, and which is why we're doing very slow in releasing the capability. We just have very basic capability today live. I think you're absolutely right. I think from a basic coaching perspective, we can absolutely give a helping hand. But I think it needs to be more specific, and it needs to be more kind of, I'm missing the word. It needs to be more deliberate as you write, as you think about it, right? Like, we are actually even considering a feature where we will, in the recommendations, we will add like an organization recommendation too. So if, let's say, there is a certain aspect, an organization wants to say, hey, we want to make sure our user stories are done in a certain way, must have this, must have this, must have this, right? So we will bring in that aspect and make sure that as product manager writing user stories, those recommendations are right up front and say, hey, looks like you're missing that. Like, it's required by the organization. Like you think about it, right? So again, I think what we want to do is, and again, believe it or not, we just gave our first, when we launched our automate user stories thing, we have a customer, pretty large client, and we gave one button, very easy button. So with that one button, you get your user stories, you get your use cases, you get your acceptance criteria. Just imagine that, like one user story, 10 use cases, 10 acceptance criteria, boom, right? And we were so excited, like, look, we gave the one easy button and everybody's going to be so happy. The feedback that we got was that, wait a second, like, I don't want to do that. Like, I want to make sure that after I've done the user story, I can think about the use cases, and then based on that, I move forward. And then we were like, oh, why would you do that? Like, don't you want the easy button? Like, no, like I want to add my own specificity to it, right?
Right. Yep.
So we're like, oh, so now instead of one button, we have three buttons. And originally, when we thought that, oh, giving one easy button is better, what our customers telling us is, no, if you want to write good user stories, you want to be deliberate about it, right? So again, we would love to kind of give you one easy button and imagine that we've solved everything for you all the way, but that's really not the case, right? So we are taking like small deliberate steps to give you, okay, I want to do this, I have put my thought into it, now give me the easy button. So they give you the, right? So I think that at least that's what our philosophy is, that we don't believe that any tool today can solve 100% of a product manager's job. It's sort of his job, right? And they like to have to think about, manage expectations, and read between the lines, like look around the corner, what's happening, look at the market, look at like competitors and all that stuff. It's not an easy job. It cannot be described through an automation tool, right? But a good product manager, and this is what I typically say, is a good product manager not only thinks about the best case scenarios, thinks about the worst case scenarios too, right? So we want to make sure that you're thinking about all that stuff and taking the help when is needed, so that it accelerates your time, right? So we are actually like literally like what Moshe said, 100% agree with that. That's exactly how we are approaching the product, and we are learning. Like as we're talking to people, like we're learning and we're optimizing the product as we go along.
And what you're describing here is exactly that. Oh, we have a great idea. We think it will solve everyone's problem. And then when you show it to users, you see actually that's not what they wanted. So I'm really happy that I don't know if I'm happy that you had to go through that, but I'm happy that you've gone through that to see that this is not what people want. And that's exactly it's a great lesson for every product manager out there. It doesn't matter what we're building, right?
That's what's so fascinating.
But
talking to customers.
And talking with startup founders like this. I mean, This is why we like this type of episode so much. Is the next step also creating wireframes for us?
I kid you not. That is the number one ask. It is like I have so many potential customers who literally said this to me. Sumeet, give us the wireframes. Like, take my credit card. That's literally.
And it's funny because we always think that designers will do the wireframes, but at the end of the day, many of us, we participate in that. Sometimes we don't have designers to help us doing that. And it's just the next, natural thing to do, right?
Yeah. I was thinking the other way too. Like I don't know if you're going to go multimodal where you're going to take images. So I was thinking like take a picture of an image and then break it down into stories. So if you already had a wireframe of something, take an image of that and then break it down for me.
So I got that request too. We are looking into that, but I think the number one ask is that because we are putting effort and we have pretty good user stories by that time, right? Like the PRD of the user stories. From there, we should be able to draw a wireframe to it, because today everybody is telling visual stories, right? It's easier to explain to people what you want to build with the visual abilities, right? What we see out there, I think it's not mature enough right now. All the solutions that exist in the market, I think they're very gimmicky, and they're not like on the art side. Absolutely, right? Like if you want to look at the creative aspect to it, absolutely. I think Midjourney and others have like really done a fantastic job. But I think when it comes to like a technical implementation, like a wireframe type of a thing of a complex system, I don't think there's anything out there. We are working very hard on thinking about how do we bring it to the market. Once it has a decent maturity, that'll be the number one thing that we will implement. And I think it will close a significant gap that a lot of people are asking us for. So yes, it's coming.
No, that's cool. That's cool. Very nice. Can you tell us a bit about your, internal product management? Because that's also something we're very curious about, with startups. How do you see yourself as a product organization?
I mean, so we are small, right? So we don't have a large organization. We use our own dog food. So our entire backlog is on Prodhub. I'll give you a very good
Awesome.
example. If you notice on our page, we don't have FAQs right now. So I literally took me a minute to generate the user stories, use case, and acceptance criteria using our own tool. Took me about 5 minutes. I quickly reviewed it. And FAQ again is like, if you look at the functionalities, like it's a most common pattern, right? What will you add in that, right? And again, as a first draft, right? Sure, you can add a lot of innovation. Like I was looking at an article where I think one of the companies, what they did was they took the FAQs and they converted into a chatbot, so that people can converse. A smart idea, like absolutely, like, do that. But my first step is not that. My first step is just get the FAQ page, right? So for that, it took me like 5 minutes to generate, review, all done. I sent it to my developer. He responded back within the hour. Here's the schema of it. Here's I'm going to build a database. Here's how I'm going to store FAQs. I said done. And 2 days later, the FAQ is live on our site. I have to add content, but the FAQ is live, right? I mean, that's kind of like a story that I think should resonate with. Like, this was really, really hard. Like, I cannot tell you how many people have cried that, and again, it's a typical product versus engineering battle. Product thinks, oh, that's so simple. Like, why is it taking you like 3 weeks to do that, right? And the developer comes back with all sorts of reasons, like, well, here's why, and because of this and that, and all that stuff, right? And I think another interesting request that I got from a potential customer was, Sumeet, I would like you to benchmark it for us. Well, what does that mean? Well, how quickly were our PMs able to write the user stories? And then how quickly it was developed and launched so that we can start benchmarking the total time it takes to implement a particular feature. And then we can question and challenge the existing norms, right? Look, we accelerated the product management part of it. And how can you accelerate the engineering part of it? So how did that shrink the overall turnaround cycle, right? Another, I think, benefit that people will get by using Prodhub is that when you write good user stories and when you think about the use cases that normally would not think, and our tool would suggest, right? We'll say, hey, what about edge cases, right? That will impact your technical debt. If you think about all this, one of the reasons of technical debt, other than unplanned activities, is that product managers don't write good user stories, and it comes out as a surprise. Oh, I didn't think about that. Oh, I didn't think about the null scenario, right? So when you put the effort early on, you end up having a smoother process later on, right? A smoother launch later on, right? So that's what we want to institutionalize more and more, to tell people that, hey, spend more time thinking about what you're building. We are giving you all the help you need, and that will make it easy for you as you go along.
Yeah, yeah. When I work before Agile, when I work in Waterfall, I had to write all of those long requirements document, and I always berated myself if I had any gaps in there,
Right.
and I felt bad about it. Then when I moved to Agile and I wrote stories, every time that there was a gap like that, my Scrum Master would say, "Oh, it's just a gap. We'll do it next time." And it's always like, "Oh, so now I don't have to worry about all these gaps."
Yeah. Yep.
But we know that if we can think about these things up front, we definitely can save time later. So no, that's great. I'm really happy to hear that you're using your own product, because we always said that's the best way to build our products.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
There is another principle that we're trying to think about. Now, philosophically, I'll probably go very high. I'll go like maybe 1,000-foot level, away from Agile, away from our product. We are experimenting with a format right now for an e-commerce company, for a retail company. And if you were to think about that retail company, and this was my first conversation with my advisor, Vivek, he's my first advisor. I went and spoke to him, and he immediately signed on to become the advisor when I looked at the idea. And I had a prototype working at that time. So he was like, "Oh, you have a prototype already working. Normally people come to me with an idea. You already have a prototype." I'm like, "Yeah, right." So he was trying it. And then his first question was, "Okay, Sumeet, this is good for software products, but does the principle apply for physical products too?" And that got me thinking. I'm like, wait a second. Yes. I mean, it's like a physical product is a product. A product is a product, right? If you have to build a physical product, for example, if let's have to build a microwave oven, it has specifications too. You have to think about what it does. You have to think about how much wattage it will take, or to think about what are the heating restrictions, or think about the space and all that stuff. And they call it specifications. Like if you go back to like 20 years back, and specifications was the word, nobody had thought about user stories, right? So we are actually working for a retail customer. The format will be slightly different because you can't use epics and user stories and all, but you'd use specifications, but largely the principle remains the same. And then if we were to kind of look at fast forward from that 10,000 view level, right? So basically they will be able to generate a product specification of a product, right? Now marry that with the visualization aspect of it. I want to build an electric bike which has 500 watts, 48-volt battery, 4-inch wheels. You get your images too, right? You get your product specification, you get your images, and suddenly that becomes like a real thing, right? Like when between your factories to your retail shop, that becomes the specifications. And now you marry that two together, right? Like, what is that? Is it a physical product? Is it a software product? Well, I would say 50-50, right? Tesla is as much hardware as it's software, right? So how is Tesla managing the product requirements? Well, my guess is they probably have their in-house system that is managing all these different specifications different ways, but every product company needs to think differently, right? Needs to think about, I think the boundaries of hardware and software are merging. I think as the technology evolves, you cannot have a hardware product without a software component to it, unless it's very basic. It's where like you can't have a smart glass or something like that. But I think as we think about adoption of technology, the principle of a product is a product. A product is meant to solve somebody's need. What is that need? What and how does that product solve that need, right? So we are actually looking at that aspect of it. So there will be a version of the retail product as well, where retailers, they care about their product and their specifications, and they will be able to manage that because largely the principle remains the same. So we are working on that as well. It should be live soon.
One more question about integrations. You mentioned Jira before. Are you integrated with other like Azure DevOps or other systems, or is that in your roadmap?
So DevOps is integrated. We are working on certain aspects that need to be improved. And then we are taking in requests as to like, some people have reached out, like, can you integrate with Asana? Some people reached out, can you integrate with like Monday? So we will consider all that depending on like the priority. Right now it is Jira. And we are actually going to be in Marketplace soon. So that is a Jira Marketplace. Developer is literally building a Hello World app right now as we speak. Should have Prodhub.ai on Jira Marketplace as well, because again, I think it will help with the friction. Like they are already using Jira, just easier to just install the app and start using Prodhub.ai as well. So that's kind of coming up in about 2 weeks. I expect in about 2 weeks we'll have a version of that live.
Nice.
From an analytics perspective, like we talk about efficiency and being able to make your team stronger. I wonder if there's any capability like in the long term around being able to help your customers see the efficiency gains through, hey, we've improved the efficiency of your team so they can go focus on innovation, takes in the form of metrics and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a tough problem to solve, but I think a happy problem to solve. Definitely have that in mind. Like we have to prove what we say, the value is. And we are thinking about ways we can start measuring it. It's not there yet, but absolutely.
I would think you will need some benchmark to compare with.
Absolutely. I think one of the our benchmark overall, holistically speaking, McKinsey just did a study with the GitHub Copilot, and they found out that developers were 56% more productive by using GitHub Copilot. That's the benchmark we have. We want to be able to say that product managers are 50% more productive by using Prodhub.ai. And and whatever KPIs we need to track, metrics we need to track to be able to do that, I think we'll go down that path. But that's what our benchmark is. We want at some point of time a report to be published that said, yes, our customers to say, yes, we saved about 50% of our time by using Prodhub.ai.
Yeah. I think one of the problems is that the work of a product manager is much more qualitative than quantitative. So
Correct.
it's a bit hard to quantify.
Correct. Yeah, easiest answer is surveys, but of course, like there needs to be more sophisticated than that, right? So we'll have to look into it, and we want to make sure that we get that. So you'll see it all over our homepage once we have more numbers to share.
Yeah, perfect. I don't think I have any other questions, Matt.
Speaking of generative AI, like just in general, like where do you think it's going to go in the future?
No, I think we are just at a very early stage with generative AI. I think I like to say that what OpenAI has done and caught Google and others napping is that they've given the easy button on top of it. When I was at Disney, like we were very familiar with creating machine learning models. Like we would use like classification models, like for various use cases, like identifying fraud and whatnot, right? So the way previously, or at least like 3 years back, the way companies thought about machine learning was you would have a data scientist and certain people with specific skills who would look at the data, clean the data, train the data, build a model, mature the model. It takes 6 to 12 months to do that, to actually productize the model, right? And only a specific set of people had those skills. And the fun part, the joke we had internally was that the way you measure your machine learning models was through a confusion matrix. Like, think of a better name. Like it's literally called the confusion matrix, right? So I think what generative AI has done, I think overall the concept is pretty simple on what the technology is. I think they've just kind of thrown the widest net possible to get the data, train the models on the data, and then they put the easy button on top of it. Oh, no, just talk to them in plain English. I think that's what opened up the use case, because you don't need a data scientist to talk to OpenAI, right, anymore. So I think that has been a transformative moment for everybody. Instead of a select few, now everybody can use it, and there's an actual use case around it. And I think, as we all know, more and more, the amount of data that is being created is insane, right? And that data, I think the models are going to become better and going to become much more smarter. I think we will end up in a situation where, similar to like a cloud, like this was like 5 years back, the way the cloud applications were, Google, AWS, Azure, similar to that, you'll see, again, these are the AI leaders, they will have AI solutions, right? Like you want to use an AI solution for X, you want to use an AI solution for Y, right? And the businesses will end up creating applications on top of it, right? So we are doing something similar, slightly earlier and narrowly focused on product management. We want to build our use case and solve product managers' life. To us, it doesn't matter, right? If you're like today, it matters because right now, honestly, GPT-4 is the most accurate and the best model out there. But we are testing against Bard. We are testing against out there, and it could be just be put an abstraction layer and find out like what is the best or most
which
accurate.
one's the best.
So for us, it doesn't matter. Just like it doesn't matter which kind of like API you use, as long as you're getting the right API results, right? So we may end up in that. So I think the use cases will evolve, and again, it'll become faster, and you'll in finding more value as you go along. And I think the technology evolved in terms of the data, in terms of the use cases it can support. Like I think the biggest one is, we were having this conversation yesterday, healthcare, right? In healthcare, the biggest risk is, well, in case of say content creation, if your accuracy is 90%, that's pretty damn good. But in case of healthcare, if it's 99% accurate, it's very bad. You cannot have even 1% false rate, right? So I think it needs to evolve. That maturity needs to come. The data accuracy needs to come, right? There's a lot of all sorts of feedback loops that need to go in, I think, to make it more accurate. There is then the resistance comes from the fact that, hey, my proprietary data can be out there. I don't want that to happen. So there's a lot of confusion around that. Right? Like if you're using generative AI, my secrets could be out, right? So a lot of teams are taking the route of clamping down on it and saying, no, like until we understand, we're not going to touch this. So I think it'll take some time, some level of maturity to get there. We'll see all that in the next 2 to 3 years. I think we'll see a lot of this evolution happen.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Oh, thank you for those thoughts. And Where can people find you and connect with you if they want to hear more?
Yeah, so my LinkedIn is Sumeet Rana, and Prodhub.ai. Our product page is there. So follow the Prodhub.ai page on LinkedIn. And at any time, I can be reached out at Sumeet@Prodhub.ai for any questions or clarifications or even partnership opportunities. We are signing up partners too, not just companies and individuals. So I can be reached out at Sumeet@Prodhub.ai.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Sumit, for coming on the show. And we are going to continue following your journey. And hopefully a lot of our listeners are going to try and sign up for Prodhub.
Yeah.
And if you do, please let Sumit know that you heard about it on the show.
Perfect.
Sounds good. Thank you, Sumeet. We really appreciate it. Thank you, Moshe. We'll look forward to talking to everybody next time. Take care.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Take care, everyone.
Thank you to all the listeners. We really appreciate the feedback and support. Please leave us a review to help others find the show on Apple or Spotify or anywhere else you're listening to the show.